Gosh, well, this is rather exciting. Charity workers don't often get to go to posh shindigs, so thank you very much for inviting me along. I actually had one of your members came and saw us recently, and I told him I was speaking here, and his words to me were, "Don't be dull." So I really hope I'm not dull and apologise if I am. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is GASP Motor Project, who we are, what we do. Why do we need to be here? What's the need for us? How we work, what our outcomes are, and then what I'd like from all of you. So first thing to tell you, we celebrated our 20th anniversary this year. We had a fabulous event at Mercedes-Benz World. We had Damon Hill, and it was a fabulous event, really looking back at the history of the charity, where we were started by a local policeman who was trying to support young people who were setting fire to cars in the Surrey Hills, in the villages of Gomshall, Albury, Shear, and Peaslake, and that's where GASP comes from. We as an organisation believe that all children should have a positive learning experience, irrespective of their background or any disadvantages that they may have. So, we're an alternative education provider. We work with 13 to 16-year-olds, and work with those that are on the periphery of mainstream education. And we use motor mechanics and engineering as a way of re-engaging those children back with learning. So that's quite a statement for you. Why is GASP needed? The number of school exclusions, suspensions and permanent exclusions has reached its highest level since 2006. There are phenomenal numbers of children that are being suspended and excluded from school. So just in the last academic year alone, 954,952 children were suspended. That's an incredible increase of 21%. And that's actually 11.31 pupils per 100. Absolutely incredible. Permanent exclusions up 16%. That's 1.3 per 1,000 children. Bear in mind, most state-funded secondary schools have about 1,000 pupils in it. So that's one pupil per secondary school. So these are the numbers. As I say, I come from Surrey, but these are the numbers nationwide. And you can see what you're looking at in terms of your local area. The North East, Yorkshire and Humber have some of the highest levels, but apart from Greater London, everywhere has got significant problems with suspensions and permanent exclusions. So, who are these children? Who are being excluded? Who are being suspended? We know that areas with the highest economic deprivation have got those high levels of suspension and permanent exclusion. Children who have special educational needs and disabilities are 5 times more likely to be suspended than their mainstream cohorts. Now, I don't know if you know free school meals. It's often used by the government as a measure of poverty. If you are below a certain income level as a family, your child becomes eligible for free school meals. 60% of suspended children have free school meals, yet they only make up 25% of the total pupil population. And as we know, unfortunately, boys are significantly more likely than girls to be suspended. Again, sadly, children that are interacting with the local authority, be that a child in need, a child on a protection plan, again, significantly 8 times more likely to be permanently excluded. And children with mental health needs, 3 times more likely to have to move school. But what's missing from that is ability. Everything there is outside of a child's ability to do anything, but it doesn't take account of their intelligence levels, it doesn't take account of their vocational abilities, it doesn't take account of their practical skills. So the children that we're talking about here are primed for every industry to be working in them, because these are disadvantages that they themselves can't control. Why? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I'm sure all of you have heard the COVID inquiry that's going on at the moment, focusing very much on the impact of young people. there has been a whopping great increase in the number of complex needs for young people since COVID. As I say, the COVID inquiry is looking into why some of those might have been. The first one is sustained time away from school in lockdown. What a lot of us might not appreciate is that when you're a child in a challenging environment, school actually becomes a safe haven for you. And if you're denied that, then you're constantly in a state of heightened awareness. The transition from primary to secondary. Primary school's lovely. It's where you're told off and you get to go and sit with the headmistress and play with Lego. Then all of a sudden you go up to the secondary school and you've got these horrifically big teenagers that are horribly scary. Traditionally, we take those children from primary and they have a couple of introduction days and the teachers go back to primary. None of that happened. We had children that were just going straight from the warmth of a primary school straight up to secondary school, and they simply couldn't cope with it. Poverty exacerbates pre-existing conditions. Lockdown, we saw an awful lot of people who were out of work. Furlough didn't completely cover all of the costs that were there, and if you're in a low economy household, it just exacerbated those difficulties. And again, as I'm sure most of you have seen in the press, there was a horrific rise in domestic abuse that went on during lockdown, and children saw all of that. If they weren't part of it, which tragically some of them were, they certainly saw it, and that has an incredible impact on children. What has happened is that you get these children and all of their needs just keep growing and growing and growing, and there's nobody that's able to actually match their needs with some sort of care and support. Why? There's a reduction in schools funding. So where you might have specialist support or you'll have your pastoral care, all of that's gone. Schools can't afford it anymore. You may or may not be aware of the child and adult mental health services. Cuts to those services have been absolutely detrimental to children. I had one of the children that we're working with at the moment. They're waiting for a diagnosis for ADHD. There's a 4-year waiting list to be diagnosed. He's 14 at the moment. He's going to be 18, and by the time he gets there, he's out of children's services and he's into adult services, and the whole thing starts all over again. And unfortunately, the way that our education system works at the moment is that schools are based, their league tables are based on academic outcomes. So it's about the number of points you get for the number of GCSEs awarded. And unfortunately, what we see every year is a growing number of children that are registered or put on roll at what's called a pupil referral unit, which is where children go after they've been permanently excluded. The incentive isn't there for the schools to keep them. And please don't hear that I'm blaming the schools. The schools do a phenomenal job, but they're under so much pressure, and because of their funding, they can't do everything. But the other thing is this. Now, all of you, I'm sure, have got one of these, and I'm sure that for many, just like many children, this thing is going beep, beep, or it's vibrating in your pocket all the time. 97% of 12-year-olds have one of these, and they generally go off 237 times a day. Now, if you're a child at school, even if it's in your bag, you can still hear this thing vibrating. It's a constant distraction. And unfortunately, schools are kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. We've got online learning, we've got children doing their homeworks on their laptops, they've got their timetables on these things, yet at the same time, they're a massive distraction. This, I think, is incredible. The average attention span, and that goes for everybody in here, in the last 2 decades, has dropped from 2.5 minutes to 47 seconds. So hopefully you're all still with me, but that's incredible, 2.5 minutes to 47 seconds. What this also does is it gives off a blue light, and the blue light affects the hormone that actually enables you to go to sleep. So children are staring at this. They're obviously staying up later because they're in their bed under the duvet and mum and dad think they've gone to bed. Though it's later, they finally put it down and then they can't actually get to sleep, which then means that we've got children who are now going to school, they're tired, they're grumpy, more so than a normal teenager would be, and they're not able to have the attention span that they need to within school. So the consequences of this. A remarkably high proportion of young people committing serious acts of violence have been excluded from school. That's one of our key issues that we have in this country. Children excluded from school by the age of 12 are 4 times more likely to be in prison by the age of 24. That's a staggering figure. Now, why am I here talking to all of you? Heard in the previous section, everybody talking about recruitment, everybody talking about employment. In the last quarter of this year, there were 948,000 16 to 24-year-olds not in work or employment. 948,000. That's 16 to 24-year-olds that could be in the workplace. Of that, 583 are economically inactive. They're not even looking for jobs. So this, I'm sure all of you are very, very familiar with all of this. For those that can't sort of see, the red lines are tyre industry related sectors. So the second one down is wholesale and retail trade, repair of motor vehicles and motorcycles. Second one down, transport and storage, and the bottom one, motor trades. You've got a real problem within the industry, but here we have got all of these children that are available and should be in work. As I said, suspensions and permanent exclusions are nothing to do with ability. As you might expect, the experts say that we need to do something about it. We need to work together as industry, as alternative providers, and as education to support young people into the workplace. So what is GASP Motor Project? So we are an alternative education provider. So we're independent of the local authority, we're a registered charity, and we work with children to give them a positive learning experience completely irrespective of who they are or what they do. So we work with those in poverty, we work with those in negative home environments, special educational needs and disabilities. Lots in the news at the moment about what's called an education and healthcare plan, an EHCP. You've got children that might have a diagnosed or undiagnosed special educational need and disability. An education and healthcare plan is put together by the local authority with the NHS, and it identifies what that child needs in order to enable them to succeed in school. And it might be that they need a specialist provision. But again, like lots of other things, the backlog of these is enormous. So we at GASP take children with or without the EHCPs just to try and get them back into education. Lots of our children have been permanently excluded. Lots of our children are school refusers. We get children who come to us from the youth justice system. We get them from homeless organisations, wherever. If that child is between 13 and 16 and has an interest in motor mechanics and engineering, we will take them on one of our courses. So this is us. So you can see that this is one of our mobile classrooms. We've got 3 of those, and they travel around Surrey. They go to school sites or partner organisations. We work with YMCA, Surrey Young Carers. We work with Surrey Police, and we'll go onto their site and we will deliver the motor mechanics and engineering training. We also have a purpose-built workshop. That's actually the tutor team on an inset day in September. And they were doing lots of different things with mechanics and engineering that I don't really understand, if I'm completely honest with you. But we have children down here on site, and we're actually in the process of doubling the size of our workshop so that we can get additional cohorts of children down to us. All of our sessions are for a maximum of 6 children, and we have 2 tutors. And when I first came into GASP, and I looked at the budgets and I looked at the numbers, and I just was like, this is madness. That's the most uneconomical plan I've ever seen. And then I went out and I met the kids. And actually, a 1-to-3 ratio is absolutely imperative for some of these children. Nowadays, lots of children, they sit all day in their bedrooms. They don't go out. If they're a school refuser, they're just in front of that screen. You don't even get kids congregating on street corners anymore. And what we were finding is that these children would be so withdrawn that they had a complete lack of confidence. But by working in a 1-to-3 ratio, they have that ability to say to their tutor, I don't understand this. Can you explain this to me? Or, I've done this, is this okay? And the tutor would say, yeah, it's brilliant. It's fantastic. Oh my God, yeah, that's absolutely amazing. But you can't get that in a classroom of 30 children. That child who sits at the back because they've been constantly told that they can't do something is now with a trusted adult that they're able to see as a mentor and as a guide. All my tutors are from industry. They're not teachers. They've come from industry. They've worked in exactly where you've worked, and they get so excited. I mean, as I say, tyres are obviously very exciting to everybody in this room, but my tutors can start going on about them, and they get really excited, and the kids get excited about it, and that's what we're trying to do, is reinvigorate these children to think learning is exciting. What we also do is everything's really hands-on. So if we talk about tyres, where you're talking about tyre depths and wear and that kind of thing, rather than just looking at a book, they're measuring them. We've got tyre changing machines where they get to do it, but they're also learning the physics of it as well. They don't know they're learning the physics of it because that would be boring, but they're being taught to do the practical side of things. We've got engines and they have to calculate the capacity of them. Again, it's a relatively complex algebra sum, but it's not if you're actually measuring it and you're actually doing it. And that's what we're doing. It's getting these children to just think about learning in a completely different way. And children will be with us for 1 term, 2 terms, or for a full academic year. So, these are all of the topics that we would cover, as you would expect us to, everything from health and safety, vehicle servicing. We also have a fleet of Green Power F24 EV race cars, which we race at Dunsfold and Goodwood, and we're very successful at it as well. But what makes us unique? So as I say, we're flexible. Anybody can come to us. We don't have a referral criteria. Our 1-to-3 staff ratio, it makes us expensive and it's difficult to keep the charity running, but our outcomes are outstanding. It's very much based on hands-on learning, getting the children to engage with something that's really interesting. We have the flexibility of how we deliver, and it's about that child, it's about the individual. As I say, they will start talking to their tutors about something that isn't part of the session. We always laugh, if you get Trevor talking about motorbikes, he can fill an entire year rather than just a 2-hour session. So this shows you how many teaching sessions and how many young people we've supported. And the reason that I've put that on here is because there has been a significant increase in the young people that we support. Now, as a charity CEO, that's great. Aren't my figures fantastic? But that's an incredibly sad reflection on the state of young people in education at the moment. That should be going the opposite way, but it's not, and it's continuing to go up and up. The outcomes that we have are phenomenal, and this isn't me just saying, this is the feedback that we get from all of our schools. As I said, a child who is self-isolating, a child that is a school refuser, children that put their hood up. A lot of you will probably see that as quite an aggressive stance. For so many of our children, that's their barrier. They put their hood up because they're actually afraid of you. And we always see it as a mark in September. They come into us growling and not really doing very much with their hoods up. By Christmas, the hoods are down and they're starting to smile. Constant attendance. If you're a school refuser and you haven't been in a permanent place of education for 2 or 3 years, turning up at our workshop every Wednesday morning is a phenomenal outcome just in itself. We have vocational qualifications, we do AQAs, we do IMIs. So everything that we're doing is trying to prepare these children for actually going into work. Teamworking, communication skills, but of course what we're really looking for at the end of it is re-engagement with education and to reduce the suspensions and the prevention of permanent exclusions. So what our schools say, it's very positive. The course has helped these young people to gain confidence in working in a group and engaging with adults outside of the school. It's also given them the idea of college and apprenticeship options open to them after they sit their GCSEs. That's what we're trying to do, is to get them to engage with future employers. The kids, not quite so articulate. I enjoy GASP because it's calm. You get treated well. I like working in smaller groups. But the kids themselves get a huge amount out of it, and a lot of them won't even be aware of the fact that their self-confidence have grown. They won't even be aware of the fact that their ability to communicate has increased. So the call to action. I couldn't possibly be here as a CEO of a charity and not say we need money. We get no local authority funding. Half of our income comes from schools that pay for it. The other half of our income we fundraise for. And we're always looking for corporate supporters. Tools and equipment, professional training aids. If any of you are getting rid of anything because you're replacing them, please always think of GASP. We would more than welcome your hand-me-downs. And if you're feeling particularly generous, we'd welcome you to buy us new ones as well. But the other thing is employer engagements and visits. Merit Tyre, one of your members, we've recently engaged with them. We've got kids going to their site both in Leatherhead and in Chertsey, so they're going to go and see actually what the industry does. Ringway, who had the contract for Surrey Highways, gentlemen, we were talking about these cool wheels and the big trucks and things. They come down to us with their gritters, and the kids all stand next to them and see how big the rims are, and they all get to walk in them. They obviously also ask how much does it cost, because that's of relevance to them. But that's the kind of thing that we're trying to do. We want to engage our children with your industry so that they've got a future, and hopefully we can do just a tiny weeny little bit to plug some of the problems that you also have. So before I click on to the next one, I'd like you all to get your phones out. Because I've travelled a long way. So if you've got your phone out, turn on your camera. And I would like you to click on that QR code. Now, what I do know is that all of you lovely people are going to a rather posh shindig this evening, and you're all going to be celebrating and you're all going to be drinking. So at about 9:30 this evening, I want you to open that. I want you to go on the Just Giving page, and I want you to make a donation to GASP Motor Project. And don't forget, if you do it as part of a corporate or as an individual, it is tax deductible. And don't forget to gift aid. Thank you very much.